I wanted to go ahead and look at editing CMDB items in bulk. So I'm here on my Remedyforce CMDB tab. I can come into here to this little icon, paper and the pencil, and that puts me into bulk edit mode. I'm sure some of you are probably exporting, making changes in Excel, importing it back in, or kind of going through it one by one. But if you are going through it one by one, you know it gets a little tedious to open a record, change it, save it, open a record, change it, save it. So by using this screen, I can actually come in and change things in a bulk basis. Let's say, I don't know if I have a good thing to change here, but I could go ahead and mobile phone 1, and I'm going to update the description, new description here, and so on. And I can go ahead and scroll. If I'm on a laptop right now, so my browser's not showing my bottom scroll button, but if I could scroll over to the right and get to other capabilities as well. There, serial number, supported, asset ID, whatever I wanted to do, and go ahead and update things in bulk. Let's say I wanted to make a bunch of this column into no's. Go ahead and do that. So this is a lot easier than opening the records one by one, and keeps you from having to export to Excel, make the changes, and re-import back in. So once you change that primary capability field to be sorted, if you do want to update that on your computer system records, you absolutely can, and just use that particular mass updates to go ahead and do that. So I think that's one of those things that can make your lives a lot easier as you're working with your system. Again, if you do have any questions, go ahead and put them in through the Q&A window. We're just going to keep on going on through. Assuming I get my mouse to work. We've been getting a lot of questions around users lately. Just, how do I report on them? How do I know what is doing what? How can I keep track of what's going on in my system? Because a lot of the system administrators, of course, want to know this. They want to know who's using the system, where the licenses are being put, all those kinds of things. So we do get a lot of questions around this. And that's why I wanted to hit a little bit on that right now. And so I'm going to go ahead and go into my reporting tab. And some of you may have hit this already, but there is a section of reports called administrative reports. If you go down to those administrative reports here, you'll notice that there are some reports here around users. The two I tend to use, all active users and users logged in this week, those are generally the ones I'm going to hit the most. Let me go ahead and pull up the users logged in this week, and we can see my very exciting demo system. I've had 3 users log in. But the nice thing is, like any Salesforce out-of-the-box report, I can go ahead and customize this report. And so if there's other things I want to know, maybe I want to know the profile, go ahead and put that over there. Maybe I want to know, I don't know, anything. Products purchased, that's a custom thing. Just go ahead and keep adding it. So you can modify this report to be useful and show you the information you want. For example, maybe I don't want just last login. I want every login date, time. Well, now I have a report that's going to show me every time that my users logged in, every instance of them logging in. You can see Jackson and Ann, me, are the big logins here. I could, of course, sort this by user if I wanted to. Here's Sally. She's logged in a few times. And then I can, of course, I don't have to just for the last 7 days. I could go ahead and show up for maybe last month or something. So I can get a lot of information by using these particular reports, which is pretty good. I mean, that's a long way to where we want to go to, right? But one of the other questions we often get is, how do I know what kind of license they are? Are they casual, full, or are they just an end user using the end user portal? So that's not really something easily captured in the system unless you plan for it. And by planning for it, what I did is I added a field, a custom field to the user layout. I called that custom field license type. I chose to use values. I think I have full, casual, and client. I had a customer the other day who hates word client, so they're probably going to use end user. But the idea is when I do assign somebody a Salesforce license, I can go ahead and fill in this field too. I'm importing in my users. I can set it through the import, or I can always do it manually. So now when I come back to this report that I was running, and I've lost my report, of course. There we go. Here's my report. Too many tabs open. That's another thing. You can run a lot of tabs in Remedyforce, which I really like, but sometimes you can get a little bit lost. But now I can add license type over here, And now I have the license type for my users, and maybe actually I want to sort by it. Then go ahead and make it a summary report, report license type down. And now I have an idea of who's using which license type. And of course, I can always hit that hide details and just get the counts. So I have 6 client login records. That happens to all be Jackson, and 6 full license type. Of course, normally you wouldn't use this with number of times logged in, but it just gives you an idea how quickly you can go ahead and add that pretty useful field. And now later on, if you're working with your licenses, whether with RightStar or with BMC, and you want to know what kind of license you have and who's using which, you're going to be able to go ahead and do that pretty quickly. So adding that license type field onto your user layout and then populating it is going to give you some help on managing who your users are. Okay, there's a little bit more though we're going to talk about here. So that's great. I can run reports. I can create reports, do the things I want to do. But I wanted to mention something called adoption dashboards. I don't know how many of you have gone out to AppExchange, but in AppExchange, there's an application from Salesforce called Adoption Dashboards. And it's geared toward how are users using your system. So you can see there's 3 dashboards that come with it: user adoption, key features, sales, and marketing. For the purposes of Remedyforce, we really only care about user adoption. That's the dashboard that's relevant to us. It shows me who's logged in in the last 14 days, who are the lowest ones who logged in by departments. Again, in my demo data, this is a little bit sparse, not the most interesting, but I think you can see in your organization this might be useful. So this is a great way to get started. If you're starting to really look at your users and what they're doing, start with the adoption dashboards. There's no charge for them. Load them in through the AppExchange Marketplace, and they're going to be available for you right away. So I really like using these in terms of just at least as a starting place. You may modify the dashboard from here, but this is a great place to start. Okay, again, any questions, just go ahead and put them in the Q&A window. I'll just keep moving along. Back to users. We've told you, I'm sure, when we worked with you, about being able to add fields for different profiles. The idea here that if an HR person logs in, they're going to see different fields than somebody with an IT profile. So once you've set up your user profiles, and once you've gone ahead and given them to the various people, where do you set that up? It's here in this consoles area. And to get to this, I go to Application Settings, Consoles, and it brings me to my consoles. Once I've set up my field sets, I can now assign them to profiles. So I'm going to go ahead and do Create Edit Layout here. You can see I have my Incident Console default layout, and that's what most profiles get. And you can see they have these field sets in them. For my HR users, I've added in an HR field set. So now my HR users can see the fields that are in that field set, while my other users can't. There's no limit on how many of these you might want to have. That's a really nice way to segregate data, not having to mess around with sharing rules or anything like that. But you make sure HR gets to see the HR data fields. Everybody else gets to not see those HR data fields. And then if you come back to here, you just go down to that profile and you assign it the appropriate layout. So I know we've talked about this with most of our customers. Not sure how many of you have taken advantage of this. So just wanted to again mention that's how easy it is. Create a field set, make sure your users are linked to the appropriate profile, create that layout, and then link the layout with the appropriate profile. And then you're good to go. So again, makes it really easy to have a very flexible system within a fairly standard interface. And it's configuration, no customization going on. Going to jump again to a validation rule. And maybe I should have moved this up on the list. This was one of the first things I did in the system, I think, is add a validation rule that the resolution field has to be at least 20 characters. Back when I worked on a help desk or managed a help desk, I got so tired of just seeing done in the resolution field or fixed or over or maybe even blank. So that's one of the first things I did was add a validation rule to my system to say, hey, it has to be at least 20 characters long. So let's go ahead and get to my custom object here. Here I'm on my custom object incident. The nice thing about validation rules is that they're not always there, right? If I make a field required, it has to be required all the time. Validation rules, I can now say check conditions. So I'm saying that if the service desk status is closed and my resolution field is less than 20 characters, put an error message up and say that it has to have at least 20 characters when the incident is set to closed. Now, I happen not to have this active right now because I found out in my demo environment, I don't want to have that restriction on me in my demo environment. Sometimes I close tickets very quickly, didn't want to have to type in 20 characters. But for those of you out in the real world, where you want to make sure your technicians are putting in real resolutions, that's the rule you can use to say when it goes to closed or resolved or whichever status you prefer, make sure the resolution field is more than 20 characters, 15 characters, whatever it is. And that's one of the ways you can make sure that the data is getting into the system. That's going to make it more usable for everybody. I know that was kind of a change of pace from users, but hopefully that made sense. There's a couple things in self-service. I hope all of you are already doing this. But just in case, sometimes we kind of get the obvious, we think everybody has checked all the options, but then we get a question, we realize they hadn't. I actually had a customer who was getting a trial system and realized that the broadcasts weren't scrolling as a default out of the box. That was something I'd forgotten how to do, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm talking about things that are going to make the system useful. One about that is making actions visible in self-service. You all know that when you add something to a particular ticket, a note, it comes up as you can come up and pick which action you're going to add. You can define if those actions are going to be visible on the end user portal or not. I like to make it real obvious to my technicians. I put public in there. So if it says public note, it's going to be visible to the end user. And over on here on the details side, here's where I can say displayed in self-service. So you have total control. You can do as many actions as you want and mark them as public or not public, display in self-service or not, based upon what you want to do. So actions are pretty powerful. I know there's a lot out of the box, but again, just go through and check. If you're not sure which ones are public, you may want to go ahead and check and make sure you haven't inadvertently made something public that you didn't really want to. You notice that the notes is default not checked. So if you're just adding a note to your incident right now, it is not showing up on the end user portal. So you've been wondering why. That's why. It does not display in self-service. And maybe I should rename this one to private notes in my system, just so I know that it is private. It will not appear in the end user. But that way you make sure your technicians know and what's going on and whether something's going to appear in self-service. So that is one of the things I like to do for my end users, is make sure I have some public actions that they will see. The other thing is I like to allow them to add notes. I don't know if you realize this because your system may already have been set up this way, but it's actually a configuration option. So if I go into my configuration thing, right here, there's a checkbox allowing clients to add notes to their incident. If that is not checked, they will not be able to add a note. And that's really frustrating for a client, right? Because then they need to reply back by email or call in or something like that. So when you can, I always recommend having that checked. Because if that's checked, they're going to be able to add those notes themselves. There are a whole lot of other interesting links here, or options here too. And every now and again, I just go through the various options in Remedyforce administration just to see if there's something new I want to go ahead and start setting up. So you can see there's a lot of good things there, but that's the one in particular, adding notes to the incident, that can be very frustrating for a client if you don't have that enabled. I am doing a lot of talking. I'm just going to do a quick peek at the Q&A and see if there's any Q&A. Not yet. Okay. Hopefully some of these are things you haven't yet thought about doing in your system. If you do have anything you want to share, please do put it in the Q&A so we can share it with other people as well. So number 10, incident time tracking. Much like tracking users, this is a biggie, right? There are different things you can do around your incident time tracking. You all know that when you're in an incident and you add a note or an action, you can put in a duration field right there. So I can put in as a technician, I've worked 15 minutes on this particular ticket and saved it. But you can also do some automatic things in the background. And that's when we talk about working statuses. When you set up your statuses or you modify statuses, you're going to be able to define a status as work status or not work status. A work status is saying the technician is working on this. If it's not a work status, it might be something like waiting for customer information. That should not be checked in that case, because if I'm waiting for a customer, I'm not working it, right? That seems kind of obvious. Let's see if we can find one of these other ones. I think my opened is actually set to not working status, so we can go and check on that one. And again, this is your decision which ones you want to make working statuses and not be working status. No, I do have my opened as a working status right now. But my pending I wouldn't have. Pending would be a non-working status. So why do I care about that? Why do I want to do that? You're kind of looking at me going, Ann, why do I want to do that? Well, there are a couple of reasons you might want to do that. For one, you might want to know how long it's been in a working status, even if the technician didn't put in the duration. I mean, that's one of the main things to do that. So what you do, this is a report you actually run from within Remedyforce administration called Incident Time Tracking. You go ahead and can create a report, and you can pick the number of days, and it'll go ahead and create a report showing you how long tickets were in a particular working or non-working status. So here's an example of one of the reports that came in. And again, demo data, sometimes there's not a lot of data, not a lot of relevant data, but you can see that this column is time spent in current status, whatever the current status is, and then total work time. How much time have I actually spent in a working status? This is a report I ran a little bit ago, so I wouldn't have to pull up email today, but that you can see, you can get this information out, and that starts telling you something about how your technicians are working and what kind of things they are doing. And by the way, you can also put this on your Remedyforce console. You could actually modify the console work field set to have the working statuses over here. I haven't done it on this environment yet, but you could actually have them right here on the console so you know how long it's been in a particular status. If it's pending customer information for 2 or 3 weeks, that tells you something. Either the customer is not getting back to your technician, or your technician is not contacting the customer, or maybe they just threw it into a status without really paying attention. But you want to know those things so you can make sure things keep moving through the queue, even if they seem to be in a pending status. So I think that's a kind of a pretty important thing to go ahead and do and set up so you can start tracking those kinds of things. It's a little bit buried. It got put out in a particular release. I don't remember which one. It did get a little buried, so I did want to make sure everybody saw that. And I know that was a little more bits and bytes, a little more in the weeds there. But set your statuses appropriately, let your data flow for a few weeks, then run that report, that incident time tracking report, and then give it see what it's looking like in your system. Are people leaving them in pending statuses too long and working statuses too long? How does it compare to duration that they've entered? I think you might get some pretty interesting information from that. So I know we promised you 10 things. Actually, let me just check for Q&A. I do actually have a bonus one today because we're just like that. So we did a bonus suggestion. And this is something I realized after I put the 10 together that just really, to me, makes my life easier. We've all seen views in the Remedyforce console and other places. You can have list views in administration as well. So why does that help me? Well, let me go ahead and come up, let's say, to my user view. And I'm normally looking at users, manage users. I've got a list view here, got all users. You can see I already modified this particular view to have license type on it, so I can see full and casual. But maybe I don't want all users. Maybe I don't even want all active users. I want to do something else. I can go ahead and create a new view and have my users however I want. I'm actually going to go to something I've done a bit more on. Let's see, let's go to workflow. Look at my workflow rules. And here's something where I like to do list views because I like to split my workflow between my incident rules, my change rules. In this case, I was doing some playing around with opportunities. So I have a set of workflow rules that are tied to opportunities. I'm just looking at all workflow rules. I'm staring at everything, right? Change, incident, asset, release, etc. And it can get a little overwhelming. So create a new view. And let's do a change. Let's say change workflow rules. And I'm going to go ahead and do it by object equals. I'm going to find my change request somewhere in this view, this long list. Let's find change request. And now I can just look at all the workflow that's actually associated with my change as opposed to my incident or opposed to some of my other ones. So list views in administration are really useful. The other thing is sometimes you'll come into one of these things and there'll actually be a view already applied. Maybe active users is applied and you want to see all users. So I'll pay attention to your views. If you're not seeing some data, it could be you've ended up with a default view that you weren't expecting. So that was our bonus, our little bonus thing there to go ahead and let you know. Our number 11. I did want to, a question came up that's another great question that has to do around, chats, chatters, etc. And so let's talk through that. There are multiple ways to chat, and that was a good mouse move, multiple ways to chat when you're in the system. And you all have seen some of this, right? If I'm over here on my, let's go to my home tab. We've got the Salesforce chat that's part of the system. That's showing up on another one. I apologize. I wasn't planning to go here, but we'll go ahead and see if we can get to that. So there are multiple chats. There's the Salesforce chat, which is the agent-to-agent chat, and that's available to you. So I can always come in, I can open up an incident, and I can use the Salesforce chat to go agent-to-agent. But then we have the agent-to-end-user chat, or I should say end-user-to-agent. So there's a chat that comes with Remedyforce that your end users can use from the self-service portal that can open up a chat session in the back end. And that's what this available is for. That's for the end-user-to-agent chat. If I'm available, if an end user puts it in, it'll go ahead and pop it up. It'll show them, and I can start chatting with them, and I can start answering their questions. I can then, when I close out that chat window, either open a new incident, or I can go ahead and attach it to an existing incident. So you capture those chat conversations, and they do become part of the system itself. Outside of that, again, chat comes with Salesforce. Chatter comes, the end-user-to-agent chat comes with Remedyforce. And then we also have Chatter. Chatter comes with Salesforce, just like the chat does. And Chatter is where you can do your collaboration. So you can have groups in Chatter. You can do collaboration in Chatter. You can post files up in Chatter. I know when we talk to the Salesforce people, they have their whole employee onboarding stuff in Chatter. So a new employee comes in, they get assigned to the new employee group. They have access to all the forums, all the resources, everything they need to do as a new employee. You can have private Chatter groups. So you might have a Chatter group that's just for your NOC, while you have a general Chatter group that's for everybody. So it gives you a lot of power. So there are a lot of ways, as I said, a lot of ways to chat in the system, right? End user to technician, that comes with Remedyforce. Office agent to back office agent, that's a Salesforce chat. And then Chatter is the Facebook on steroids type idea, with groups being able to follow groups. You can put incidents in through Chatter. You can actually follow services in Chatter. So you can be following a service, and if a change request gets put against it, it will actually show up in your Chatter feed. So there are lots of ways to chat in the system, which of course can make you more productive as well in terms of being able to get answers quickly, easily. The other thing I should probably mention about Chatter is objects have Chatter feeds as well. So if I'm down on my record details, I can go ahead and see the Chatter feed, and maybe I want to ask Emma something about this. I can do it right within the incident itself. And this way, all that Chatter feed back and forth is captured within the incident, becomes part of the incident history as well. Again, helps you get more out of your service desk if you do decide to start using chat, Chatter, and Remedyforce chat. Hard to say chat 3 times that way, but hopefully that did make sense. So that was a great question. A great way to enhance the utility of your service desk is by leveraging all those communication channels as well. Not seeing any other Q&A right at the moment. Hopefully something today rang a bell with you and is going to make you get just a little bit more efficient as you're using Remedyforce. If you do have other things you're doing with your Remedyforce help desk, let us know. We'd love to share this information with other customers as well, because there is always a cool new thing you can do in Remedyforce.